Hello and welcome, I'm Peasant, and today I want to quickly go through some ideas on how to make that first game with your friends go well, i.e. you've picked up Spirit Island, you love it, and you want to share the joy. So here are some pointers. All of this, though, is caveated by know your group. If your group are experienced heavy co-opers, you might want to start them off on a Prussia. I've heard of Prussia Difficulty 2 being a start. You might even have a group that likes to really feel up against it from the start and lose their first few games, in which case, bump it up to 6. Why not? Why not? I've not heard of people doing that, but I could see why that would be a good way to go. But it's all about your group. Bear in mind that Spirit Island, although it does have very, very nice art, very welcoming art, the spirits on the box, it might take you by surprise at how heavy it is. So just be wary of that. There are actually some reduced difficulty options in later versions of the rulebook. It's all about having fun, right? If you're finding the game, if you think the game might be too hard for your group, start with the easier difficulty. It does, who cares? Who cares, right? But it's good to pitch it at the right difficulty level for your group. And if you don't know your group, I would start with what I'm just going to go through now. So my general principle is start with base games. So don't use Branch of Claw, don't use Jagged Earth. I wouldn't even use the promo spirits because they're kind of funky. They're cool, but they're funky. Start with the base game. You've got a few decisions to make with the base game. Do you use the power progression deck? Do you not? So the power progression deck is just a card that tells you what cards you get when you gain a power with your spirit. For me, I would advise against using it because picking a power is one of the most fun bits of Spirit Island. I remember the first time I did it, I was overjoyed. So I wouldn't recommend stripping that out unless you think that removing that extra decision might be better for your group. So I would, in general, I wouldn't use them. Similarly, you can think about, do you want to use the blight card on your first game? It is an extra little rule. Actually, for me, it makes the game feel a little bit more thematic. But if you're in any doubt about it, just don't use it. It's probably most people that come into it will just be trying to grasp the rules, pick up what the hell's going on. So it's easy. You can always add this stuff in later. Right? There's no real rush, right? Some few notes about teaching. Whenever I teach a board game, I like to connect it to a prop. I like to use this Gubbins board here. It has this very handy phase order here that basically tells you everything that happens. And I like to teach games with regard to pointing to something like this because then players can just, if they just lose where they are, they can just have a look at that and get good reminders. So that's the main thing I'd say with that. And I like to teach it in order right from the start to the beginning. So going through the growth, energy, choosing powers, and just going from all the way through that, and then players have got that kind of visual aid just on the board anyway. As one thing I'd also say, it's worth being really clear that the first game, that it is an intro game, just so that people get the right idea. I think you see these curious posts online where people are going, "Oh, Spirit Island's so easy," because they're still playing on difficulty 0. So I don't know. Maybe they've only read part of the rule book or something. It's just good that people kind of know that it is kind of an intro game. The game's actually designed with events, tokens in mind right from the beginning. They're not something that was added later on, stripped out to make a kind of affordable base game. Time-wise, I would allow 3 hours or more for your first game. It's not the kind of game you want to rush. I think on the box it says something like 120 minutes. That's viable, but especially for your first game, you don't ever want to rush your first game. Well, I wouldn't want to rush any board game. That's completely negates the point of playing a board game for me. Okay, now what spirits do you choose? And I would say with that, if you can get your players to use one of these low complexity spirits in the first game, I would recommend that, but I would not be a hard ass about it. If they like the look of Bringer or Ocean, fine. It's fine, especially if you're playing at difficulty 0, you're playing the kind of introductory game. I wouldn't worry too much about it because I think it's more important that people are playing a spirit that they like the look of than it's a spirit that you think they're going to be able to play. Also bear in mind that some spirits that one person might find really hard, other people might find really easy. I personally find Thunderspeaker mind-bogglingly hard to play, and I find Ocean really easy to play. But everyone, we're all slightly different, I hope. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend, again, I wouldn't stop people playing a spirit they want to play, but I would probably keep if you've got Jagged Earth or Branch of Claw, on promos, I'd probably just keep them out of the way. All right. Because some of those really are quite tricky. Okay. What spirit do you play yourself? I would generally recommend green because they are very good. but I wouldn't recommend them if you're not very familiar with them yourself. Like, so the general recommendation is pick a spirit for yourself that you can play almost on autopilot, so that you can be there to answer rules questions, do all that kind of stuff. That when you're it is tricky when you're introducing a game to people, because you've got all these extra mental burdens you've got to carry. So I personally am very familiar with green and very happy with green. They also help you can help defend, you can help grow your. You can help boost your teammates. So it's a really nice one for the teacher to go. And it kind of also it can be tricky for newer players, but it's not necessary. None of this stuff is too bad, I would say, in general. He says, generalizing about generalizing. So, final page of notes. One thing I like to advise newer players is to focus on their own board. And that's just to keep the decision space kind of a bit containable. Interesting little truth nugget about this game is that one of the original design intents was to make a game that was so complex that it resisted the quarterbacking problem that a lot of co-ops can have. Like Pandemic, wonderful game, but all you need is one. It's not complex enough. It's simple enough even that one player can just end up bossing everyone around. But Spirit Island is complex enough that while possible, it's kind of unlikely. So it's good to kind of know that truth nugget and realize that if you are going to try and super cooperate as all the spirits as one, it's a complex puzzle. Okay, so I would say advise people to focus on the board in front of them, but do offer help to each other, but focus on your own problems first. And this is, as your group might be super interactive, they might love kind of working that out. And again, it's a know your group thing. But yeah, so I like to go say, look, focus on your own board. But if you have something you can offer a teammate, like you could say, oh, does anyone need any extra energy? I've got this card that gives energy. Or, oh, I really would need help in this particular land. Because that just keeps the decision space a little bit smaller. And I think you probably want to do that. For most groups, I suspect you still want to go with that, even if you're quite experienced, because it's of the cognitive strain of taking on a big island. It's kind of one of those math words. It gets mathy wordier and mathy wordier. So that's what I'd say about that. And the final thing, there's not much in this video. If you have any comments, please put them down. Is if it all goes terribly well, it doesn't matter. Spirit Island's wonderful solo. You can just play it on your own. Who needs these people? Anyway, like the video if you like the video, and I'll catch you next time.